Nighttime. Inside a small house, an ordinary printing press works non-stop, pumping out stack after stack of brand new $100 bills. At first glance, they look no different from the real deal. The same paper, the same security features. Within just a few hours, this money will begin circulating through shops, banks, and businesses across the country. Nobody suspects yet that millions of non-existent dollars are entering the system. Soon, the total amount of counterfeit banknotes will exceed $250 million. It will become one of the largest counterfeiting operations in history. And behind this entire operation stands just one man, working almost entirely from home. You would assume a crime like this leads to decades behind bars, but as the investigation unfolds, the facts become even more unbelievable. In this video, you'll discover how one man printed 250 million fake dollars and walked away serving only 6 months in prison. The biggest secret of the US dollar is that it's not made of paper at all. Wash a regular piece of paper in a washing machine and it turns to pulp, but green banknotes easily survive a harsh wash cycle. That's because a $100 bill is made of fabric, a precise blend of cotton and linen. The government spends billions protecting production secrets. The brightest minds make this currency invulnerable to copying, but they missed one key detail. The watermarks and security elements are applied on top of the base, and the base itself is simply fabric that can be woven. An ordinary guy from the Canadian province of Quebec named Frank Bourassa was the first to realize this. He had no higher education. He didn't know how to code, nor did he understand economics. Frank used to steal cars, worked as a loader, and tried to start a brake pad factory. But that business failed, leaving him buried in debt. One day, while sitting in his car holding a banknote, he thought, people spend years of hard labor to earn these colored pieces of paper. What if, instead of earning them, I just print them in my garage? Bourassa lacked a formal background in economics or engineering. He had previously worked as a loader and had seen a startup factory for brake pads fail, leaving him in a precarious financial position. The decision to pivot to counterfeiting was a matter of practical observation. He realized that if he could manufacture the product people work for, he could bypass the traditional economy entirely. He began by researching public documents from the Federal Reserve System. These records provided the specific material requirements for the $100 bill, confirming the exact 75-25 cotton-linen ratio. Obtaining the material required a layer of corporate legitimacy. Bourassa registered a front company and designed a website that characterized him as a broker in need of high-grade stock certificate paper. He sent hundreds of inquiries globally. Suppliers in Asia rejected the orders due to strict oversight, but he continued to refine his pitch. A factory in Germany eventually agreed to the order. They produced a batch that matched the weight and chemical profile of U.S. currency, shipping it across the border under the label of raw financial supplies. The logistics were only half the challenge. When the paper arrived, Bourassa's second-hand printing presses struggled with the application. The ink initially bled into the fibers, threatening to waste the expensive imported materials and exhaust his remaining savings. Modern bills use optically variable ink that shifts from copper to green, and a plastic strip embedded within the fibers. These are the standard industrial defenses against home office printing, designed to be impossible to replicate without specialized government equipment. Bourassa bypassed these systems by modifying a multi-ton Heidelberg press, originally built for high-volume brochure printing. He moved the machine to an isolated hangar near the town of Trois-Rivières. To replicate the deep intaglio printing, he spent weeks manually calibrating the plates. This process requires the plates to exert enough pressure to force ink deep into the fabric weave, creating the specific tactile feel of a genuine bill. For the security strip, he sourced thin ribbons from a Chinese manufacturer. He then glued 2 layers of the German-made paper together, placing the ribbing in the center. This sandwich technique allowed the strip to appear as though it were woven into the note itself. The operation required significant power and produced a low-frequency rumble that could be heard for hundreds of meters. To avoid detection by local utilities or passersby, Bourassa soundproofed the hangar with foam and closely monitored the energy consumption levels. After 5 months of testing, the product was ready. Because the base was genuine fabric, the chemical markers used by retailers stayed yellow rather than turning black. Under ultraviolet light, the embedded ribbons fluoresced at the correct frequency. Since the modified intaglio plates provided the specific ink density required by high-end scanners, bank terminals accepted the cash as valid tender. To minimize personal risk, Bourassa acted as a wholesaler. He sold the bills to criminal organizations for 30% of their face value. This ensured he never had to spend the money himself, a tactic intended to create distance between the manufacturer and the point of circulation. The money spread rapidly across the continent through shell companies and retail networks. Bourassa filled bags with genuine currency at his home, keeping pace with the demands of buyers who recognized the quality of the output. The U.S. financial system eventually flagged a statistical anomaly. While the bills passed visual and chemical inspection, analysts at the Federal Reserve noticed a surge of banknotes entering circulation with identical serial numbers. The U.S. Secret Service and Canadian police formed a task force to identify the source. They monitored digital communications and wire transfers, but Bourassa's lack of an electronic footprint forced investigators to rely on a network of undercover agents embedded in the black market. The investigation was fueled by the memory of the 2001 Wesley Weber case. Weber's counterfeits were so effective that they contributed to the Canadian government's decision to shift to polymer currency. Authorities were determined to stop a similar disruption in the U.S. market. Undercover agents spent months gathering fragments of information in the Quebec region. They tracked forest road traffic and monitored large-scale purchases of chemical supplies, narrowing their focus to the Trois-Rivières area. The technical security of the operation remained intact, but the distribution chain was vulnerable. Frank's primary buyer was caught in an ambush with millions in counterfeit notes in his vehicle. Facing a long prison term, he provided the location of the hangar to the task force. The hangar was identified through cellular tracking, and a tactical team moved to surround the facility. Early in the morning, officers breached the doors, expecting an armed defense. Instead, they found Bourassa alone. He surrendered immediately, and the equipment was seized. Investigators found the Heidelberg press, the remaining stocks of German paper, and roughly $1 million in completed currency. The quality of the seized notes confirmed that the manufacturer had reached an industrial level of precision. The legal stakes were high. U.S. authorities requested Bourassa's extradition to face charges that carried a potential life sentence. However, a review of the factory's raw materials revealed a discrepancy. The volume of paper purchased indicated that Bourassa had printed $250 million, but only $50 million could be accounted for in the economy or the rate. $200 million were missing. Bourassa had buried the remaining currency in plastic containers deep within the Canadian wilderness before the raid occurred. This missing inventory fundamentally changed the nature of the case. The currency was so accurate that it posed an ongoing risk to the economy if discovered by third parties. The missing money became Bourassa's primary tool for negotiation. Bourassa issued an ultimatum from custody. He would provide the coordinates for the buried cash and the printing plates in exchange for immunity and a guarantee that he would not be extradited to the United States. This mirrored the case of Frank Abagnale, where the government determined that a criminal's cooperation was more valuable than their incarceration. To secure the missing $200 million, the justice system adjusted its approach. Both sides signed the agreement under strict conditions. Bourassa led officers to the forest caches, where authorities recovered and destroyed the remaining notes. Despite orchestrating a massive financial crime, Bourassa's final punishment was a fine of $1,300 to the Canadian Treasury. He was released after serving a total of only 6 months. Today, Bourassa operates a security firm. He now generates a legal income by advising financial institutions on the specific vulnerabilities he used to build his $100 million inventory.